What I have here is a console from a Wii U demo kiosk. So this would be a kiosk that would be in a retail store where people could either play demo games on it, or sometimes they don't have games on them, they just will play a video of some of the games that are available. So I have powered this on and tested it, and it does play the demo. These will play from the actual storage that's inside, so there's no discs that are playing or loading or anything like that while it's running. You can use some discs to update what's on there, add new games and such. I don't have any of those. I just thought this would be interesting to tear down because it does have some different connections on the back. What I'll do is I'll show a comparison here. So this is what this actually looks like on the back here, and this is like a little twist-on connection. This is for the controller. So these are actually hardwired. The game pads are hardwired to the back of this, and then the cables run through the kiosk. Here's the comparison between the two. So this one on top here is the normal Wii U. This is an 8 gig model, that's why it's white. And you can see it's got the power, the AV out, the HDMI, and then the sensor bar. So this one does have those same connections, but in addition it has these USB, not sure what this one is. DRC is the connected gamepad. So the DRC wire, DRC RF, these both will go to the gamepad, and that's how it delivers the video that's on the gamepad and the power as well. So my main interest in tearing this down is mainly just to see what's on the other side of these connections and where they go inside the console. Because the gamepad normally connects wirelessly to the console through some little cards that plug into the motherboard. So it's like just a little daughter board basically that plugs into the main board. So I'm interested to see if these connect into those ports somehow, if there's wires running to it on the inside to those locations, or if there's something else going on. So let's get to it. Just like a normal Wii U console, the screws to open the console are hidden under these little plastic stickers that are here. And I have some picks like this that I got from Hobby Lobby. This is what I use to get those off without bending them or tearing them up or anything like that. So a few of these screws use the tri-wing bit, like these right here, and a few on the side use the Phillips bit. Once we get into it, they're all going to be this Phillips screw, but the ones on the outside to get into it, a few of these are tri-wing. There are two more stickers covering screws here and here on the side of the unit, and these are the last two. These are Phillips as well. And this one here is gold, so you can kind of keep that one separated. And this one holds this piece to the console, but there's also a metal, like a shielding that's underneath here, and that screws into that, so it doesn't need to come out. This here is the battery compartment. Has a little bit smaller Phillips head here than the others that we've been doing so far. So good idea to take this out before you open the console, because in here it is another connection to the metal shielding that's in here. So if this is still connected, you won't be able to take the top of it off. So now that I've removed all the screws that are covered by the stickers and the couple on the side, including the battery compartment, this piece here will slide off. Just slides back a little tiny bit, comes off, and there's three more tri-wing screws here that will need to come out. Now that all the screws are removed, we can go ahead and lift this up back to front. It's pretty much the best way to do this that I've found. And it is a little difficult because this little foot will kind of get stuck and block this a bit, so you can hold that up against the top and it'll slide out a lot easier. But here's what we're dealing with on the inside of the demo unit here. And right away I can see the difference here, that this has some sort of connection going off over this way. So I'll start taking off the faceplate here. So I found another difference here. Towards the front of the console, this is connected to the disk drive. This board is not on regular consoles. On a regular console, I actually have an example here I'll show you. This is a normal one here. It's a black model. You can see the connections on the front here. That's from the power button and the sync buttons and all that. That normally comes through a ribbon cable and plugs directly into here. But on this board, on the demo, that flex cable from the power buttons and whatnot actually plugs into this other board here, and then that board plugs into the power connector. There are also some colored wires here connected to this board, and those are the same color as the connector back here. So I'm wondering if that's going under this disk drive and routing to there to get power. So it looks like these wires from this board do route through here into this board that's connected to the power over here. This is a Wi-Fi antenna here, and usually over here looks like we have one connection, but there would be a second antenna here, and it looks like there's just one metal piece on here, so it's missing one thing there. Also here, I don't recall what this power connector is for, but that's just sitting by itself taped down here, so we'll keep going. And it looks like this is a completely different bracket here that's holding on this this extra board. This bracket is not on a normal unit. Go ahead and disconnect this. So now I'm going to unscrew this board, and we'll find out a little more what's underneath of it. Alright, so this is the board here. It looks like this just sits on top of this extra bracket that's on here. From looking in here, there are these two screws here and here that connect to the outside. That looks to be the only thing that's holding on this metal piece. So I'll go ahead and take these out. Okay, and then that's coming right off of here. So it looks like this black wire that's on here, that's going the length of the board, is what's connected to this BNC connector here. This little RF, where it says DRC RF. So that, I would imagine, is going to the wireless connection here underneath the board. But we'll trace that out here in a bit. I'm going to continue tearing down the board. So the other thing I noticed is these antennas here, they were here and here. So normally you would have the gamepad antenna connections. There'd be additional antennas here and here. I thought it was just missing one before, but it is missing another. There's normally a red wire that goes here and a white wire over here. So instead of those antennas being present, we have this connector here that goes to the back. So here's the back of the system here again, and normally this bracket is not here, so this is the bracket that holds this other metal bracket to the back of the system. Normally just these two screws here would be screwing in right there and there, so it's another additional part. Now I'm going to move on to removing this metal shielding here. Going to pull this up here. Okay, so now it looks like I got two more screws here in the middle. guy out of there. I'm going to pull this up. There's nothing that holds this to the board on the top side, so this just comes right off. I am not sure what this is right here. So for comparison here on top, this is a normal console board, and you can see the normal board here does not have these connectors. So it's just an interesting difference, and I wonder, since this wasn't being used, you know, maybe that was intended to be a power source or a connector just for some other type of controller or whatnot. I'm not really sure, but it's an interesting difference there to have that. So I'm removing the board from the plastic case here, and we're going to take a look at the bottom. This seems to be about the same as usual. There is a plastic, it kind of holds down some of the metal on the bottom here, and also these will route around these wires here, normally the controller wires and the Wi-Fi wires. And you'll see on that side, that's out now. There's one on the front here that just pops right off, and then another on this side, and these again Wi-Fi wires here that are being routed around this, so we just need to kind of unroute them, and then this guy will come off too. And now at this point, on some of these brackets are here, these plastic brackets, and that was the 2 screws from the top here that I had forgotten about. These 2 screws feed through into those plastic brackets, but a lot of systems I've worked on do not have these. So it's not unusual. Back here, this is the X-clamp that holds down the heatsink. So in order to get this bottom plate off the board, we're going to have to undo these screws and then remove that X-clamp. They actually have springs that are underneath these screws, but those springs don't come out. They're connected. You can see them there. And now that those are out, we can switch to the bottom, and I'll zoom in here. You can see there's little arrows here. Those are pointing to little tiny plastic clips here. You can just push those in, and then this, just push one side and the X-clamp will pop off. Underneath the metal there are kind of sticky heatsink pads, or just sticky pads that hold these little chips in place, these little daughter boards. This would be Bluetooth here, and then under here, this is the one that goes out here, so I'm assuming that's the secondary Wi-Fi that connects to the game pads has been replaced by this, and then over here is our regular Wi-Fi. So there's going to be a board here and a board here, but we'll see what that looks like. And there's one of them. And this one, yep, that's for this guy. And then this one stayed on the board. So it looks like that other Wi-Fi card is actually still on here, but we're only using one of the connections to go out to this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Normally on the other side here, you'll see this is the little clip where it plugs in. And then over in this area there's some, like a sticky little loop of sticky paper that holds it on there. So you'll see this when I pull it off here. There it is. And then this just comes off. And so, like I said just a minute ago, normally this would have red and gray coming off of it. And in this case it just has this one black wire that leads over to our BNC connector, or RF connector. So it's interesting. It is still using this Wi-Fi connection, but not actually utilizing the antennas on it. Other than that unique connection to this Wi-Fi chip here, the rest of the bottom of the board looks normal. I don't see any additional wiring. These connections here look to be the same. It's for the HDMI, the multi-out here, power, sensor bar. These connections are identical to what they normally would be. The USB over here. And this would be the Wi-Fi. It's going to have the same kind of sticky tape there. And similar to the other one, here is the Bluetooth chip on the front, which is also held on by some sticky tape and a little clip. or a clip style connector there. So we can take that off as well. And that has no antenna to it. So this is pretty interesting because the only physical difference on the actual motherboard itself seems to be these two clips here. Looks like everything is really additional cards. This is the board that's on the back of the unit that sits above the regular AV HDMI outputs and is on this mounting bracket that connects to the motherboard and then screws onto this, and these connectors sit above those AV connectors. This Wi-Fi module that normally has antennas coming from it that are mounted on the inside of the unit, and this connects to the gamepad. And in this case we have one wire running off of it to this connector that screws into the demo unit gamepad. And then that mounts to this bracket as well through these two screw holes here, with this sitting on top here. And the last separate board is this power board that is sort of a go-between between the front power button here and eject and the sync buttons that plug in here, and then this in turn plugs into the motherboard, whereas normally this would plug into the motherboard by itself here, just directly. And then these wires run off underneath the disk drive, but on top of the board, to this additional add-on board that was at the back that we just talked about, and plugs in right here. Most likely is just used for power. These symbols here are just Japanese symbols for the colors that go here. So white, blue, red, and black. So they don't really tell me what's going on with it. Probably just power. That's what we got. Thanks for watching.